Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. My name is Leigh Curvin, and you may be watching this on my blog, becausehelovesme.com, or on my YouTube channel at Because He Loves Me. Anyway, I wanted to do this video to share my testimony about one of the biggest miracles I've received from God this year. So it all started last year in February 2016. God began to speak to me about purchasing a home. Okay, he would tell me during prayer or, whisper to me randomly throughout the day to start looking at houses. He was telling me that he would give me any house that I wanted. Now, during this time, I was going through one of the most financial hardships, one of the most financially hard times, most difficult times in my life. I was doing everything I was supposed to do financially, but it just wasn't adding up. I wasn't shopping. I wasn't spending frivolously. I was paying for graduate school out of pocket. I was paying for student loans, car note, rent, bills, you name it. I had to pay it. And I just couldn't keep up. So my bank account had been overdrawn several times. And it was at that point where I think I hit a rock bottom. My rock bottom was specifically when my car got towed while I was working. And I remember checking my bank account, and it was overdrawn by $926.94. Okay. So with tears in my eyes, I took a screenshot of it because I knew that when God got me out of that situation, I was going to need proof, okay, of where he delivered me from, because there's no way no one was going to believe that. So at the time, no one knew how bad my finances were. Some people knew I had fell on hard times, but no one knew the extent. I remember feeling crazy, okay, because I was still giving money towards tithes and offerings when I could. I would sow $10 here, maybe $25 there, whatever God was leading me to sow. The absolute amazing part about that time of my life was that my rent was paid. My lights never got cut off. I had enough money in my bank account to get gas, or at least, I had enough gas in my car to get to and from work. I had food in my refrigerator, not a lot, but I had food. So I just knew that was a true blessing from God. And you know what? It's so funny because despite my financial situation, God kept talking to me about this house. It took me a while to look at any houses because I was thinking, why would God continue to talk to me about purchasing a house? And I could barely afford the rent and bills that I had at the time. So eventually times started to get better. I had been praying about a promotion. And finally, after about 5 months, I was promoted to a supervisory position at my job, which came with a huge increase. So by this time, it was fall of 2016, and a couple of my friends were looking to buy houses. I remember going with them just to look, but I knew I was in no position to purchase. I saw something that I might like, but again, I was in no headspace to even purchase. And I remember one night in October, the Lord said to me, buy the house, it'll be ready for you. Okay. And I remember thinking, what does he mean by it'll be ready for you? Not knowing what he meant by that, but finally attaching my faith to what he was telling me, I continued to look at other houses. I attended a first-time home buyers class, but quickly got discouraged because everything was so expensive. I just remember thinking that even if I found a mortgage company to approve me, my mortgage would have been well over $2,200 a month. And I knew I didn't want to pay over $1,300 per month because that's what I was paying in rent. So I stopped looking at houses again. So fast forward to January of this year, 2017. I was at Fire Conference in Chicago, hosted by Apostle Matthew and Camilla Stevenson at All Nations Worship Assembly in Chicago. And I remember Apostle Matt releasing a corporate prophetic word, and a part of his word, he prophesied that 2017 was going to be a year of real estate or for real estate. He specifically said something about mortgage companies will be approaching you for mortgages. So, I latched on my faith to that, right? Then, right before leaving to go to the airport, it was after church had ended, I received another prophetic word from this man of God. A part of his prophecy was that God was expanding my borders and literally moving me to a new territory. And the man of God told me he saw a property near water and that it was as if God is moving land to make room for me, right? So this increased my faith enough to start looking at houses again. I knew I would need a financial miracle, because I barely had money saved. And the money that was saved was not to buy a house, okay? So I continued looking for a house, and I couldn't find anything that I liked. I knew I didn't want to be too far from work, but I also knew I didn't want to spend $400,000 on a house, because a lot of the houses that I was looking at, or the areas of the houses that I was looking at, were almost $400,000. So let's fast forward to the end of March of this year, which was 2 months after that prophetic word. I was watching a video. Apostle Ryan Lestrange had did a Facebook video. And in the middle of this video, God told me to sow a $1,000 money seed into an upcoming conference that I was about to go to. It was the Issachar conference hosted by Apostle Yolanda Stiff. He told me to label this seed launch seed. So up until that time, guys, I might have only sold maybe $200 max at one time. So I know that this was God telling me to do this, because this is not a usual amount of money that I would have sown. Like, I've never sown this amount of money. So I decided to obey him. I heard a lot of people in the past, I've heard a lot of people talk about, the power of a seed, and how seeds, especially of that size and with that sacrifice, can break off the poverty spirit. And so I was game. I said, God, okay, great. I'm going to be obedient to you. I'm going to sow this supernatural seed into Apostle Yolanda Stiff's ministry, and great, I'm good. So a week later, after God told me to sow the seed, a friend of mine sent me a house listing from Realtor.com, suggesting that I look at this house that was in a county that I hadn't considered living in. It was in a county that I hadn't even looked at. I didn't do any searches at all. I never even thought about it. In fact, when I thought about it, it was so far to me, right, at the time. And based on the pictures in the listing and the price of the model home, I said, you know what, I'm going to go this upcoming Saturday. So I went to see the house. Y'all, the model home was beautiful. It was everything. It was everything that I had asked God for in my journal. Hardwood floors, dark cabinets, granite countertops, a house even with a split staircase. And not every house has a staircase that you can enter upstairs from the front and the back of the house. I call them split staircases, but not everybody had that specific detail. And this house had the exact detail that I had prayed about and written about in my journal. I mean, 2-car garage, the amount of bedrooms and bathrooms that I had asked him for. It was exactly as I have requested it to God. And I remember, I love the house so much. And I remember leaving there praying to God that he would give me this miracle. So that was Saturday. By Tuesday, so that was 3 days after seeing the house, I received a call from the sales agent wanting to know if I'd still be interested in purchasing the house, because as of that day, the seller dropped the price of the house by $10,000. And I was like, what? And then he said, if you come in and put down $1,000 deposit and sign the purchase agreement by the end of the month, which was 5 days from the call, I would get an extra $6,500, which would bring the house down in price by $16,500. I remember looking at the phone like, is this real? Like, is this really happening? I couldn't believe what he just said. The only problem is I had just told God that I would sow this $1,000 seed into Apostle Stith's ministry just that upcoming weekend. I mean, if that was Tuesday, her conference was the end of that week, I believe. And he wanted me to come in also the end of the week to put in that $1,000 deposit. So y'all, this is when my faith took over and I started doing stuff that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity of seeing a real miracle be manifested in my life. And you know what? I wasn't even approved for a mortgage. I went to the house and I put down $1,000 deposit on the house, but then I also sowed that $1,000, an additional $1,000 at the conference. You know, I was so nervous because I just couldn't see how God was going to make sure that both checks cleared my bank account, because I knew I didn't have enough at the time for both to clear my account in that same week. Also, I remember asking the sales guy what the difference was between my house and the model home. And the only difference, y'all, was the model had a backsplash in the kitchen with stainless steel appliances. Everything else was the same. In fact, he went further to say, wow, your house actually has a washer and dryer included. Washer and dryers aren't normally included, but in yours it is. I was like, is this a joke? Like, I just could not believe. And so I sowed the seed into the conference. And then I also gave the $1,000 deposit. And sure enough, they both cleared. They both cleared my account. And I was just like, wow, you know, this is really happening. So just when I thought everything was good, something unexpected happened. So let's fast forward to June, right? It's June. I put all my deposits down with the builder. I am 11 days before closing, before being scheduled to close on my house. And I received a call from my lender, y'all, telling me that they made a mistake on my paperwork. And the money that I was due to receive at closing from the state of Maryland as a grant is now not available because of the county that I was moving to. And that I will be required to bring an additional $7,500 at closing. Now, this $7,500 was on top of the money that I had already needed to pay at closing. So I remember her saying that she would look into other loan options, but that was most likely going to be the story no matter what the loan option was. It was a Friday. I remember it was a Friday. I was absolutely crushed. I was shocked. I just couldn't believe that God would bring me this far, okay, and let me down like this. I just remember that next Saturday, I had started to look for apartments because if I wasn't moving into that house, I need to find a place to live because I was going to be homeless, okay? I had already put in my notice with my apartment company, so that was it. So I spent that entire Saturday crying and looking for apartments. Later that day, I sent an email to the loan officer and CC'd anyone else's email in that company that I could find, okay? I described how I did everything in decency and order and everything was on time on my part and how it was just unacceptable to get to this point and receive this type of news and how they needed to figure out something. Because you can't tell someone a week or so before they're about to close on their house that they need to come up with that type of money on top of the money that was already supposed to be, given at the end of closing. So by that Monday, so that was Saturday. So by that Monday, the supervisor got in touch with me and she said that she found another option, but I'd still have to pay additional money at closing. My interest rate was like 3% higher. And y'all know that 3% higher, that's like that's ridiculous. I'm not paying 3% higher and then additional funds with when you guys messed up. So, I said no. I was about to walk away from the company, and was about to be homeless and was about to just figure something out. And then one of my very close friends reminded me about all my prophetic words. She reminded me about, what the prophecy was earlier that year, what God has spoke to me. And then she also, showed me that I was experiencing opposition from the enemy at that time. So I basically responded back to the lender and I said, you know what, you need to fix this. Figure something else out. This went back and forth for 5 days. So now I'm about 5 days away from the scheduled closing date for my house. Still don't know if I have a place to live. Still could potentially be living on the street. Okay. And I'm just ready to call it quits at this time. And anyone who is already familiar with the house buying process, you already know that it's already stressful. Well, this seemed like it was on a whole new level. Okay. All I could think was, I am legit about to be homeless. Okay. So I asked the company to make up for what the state of Maryland was supposed to give me. And they, went back and forth. And 3 days before closing, I received a new purchase agreement showing that the builder and the lender were going to give me the money. Oh, but it wasn't only $7,500. When it was all said and done, they ended up giving me $12,000 at closing, which made it so that I received money back when I went to closing. I found out 4 p.m. the day before my scheduled closing date that I had finally been approved for my loan. So I closed on my house June 28th of 2017. And you know what, guys? God literally moved land for me. My house is brand new house, newly constructed. And the house is near water. Remember the prophetic word? I am 5 minutes away from the Susquehanna River. And remember when God told me the house will be ready for me? That's what he was referring to. The home is already in the process of being built when I went to go see the model home. The ready time for the home was already scheduled to be June 2017, which was the exact time that my lease for my apartment was ending. So I just wanted to share my testimony and some lessons I took away from this experience. This experience taught me that it's important to obey God. When we obey God, we get to see his goodness. And when we don't obey God, we don't know how much we miss out on. Could you imagine if I wasn't obedient to God? I could imagine I wouldn't be in this house for sure. I wouldn't even own a property. I wouldn't have received the favor that I've been receiving ever since I moved into this house, actually. So, it's important to obey God. The second lesson that I wanted to share is the power of a seed. God looks at the condition of our hearts, not at the amount we sow. He honors your sacrifice. And so sowing during my season of financial hardship was probably one of the hardest things that I had to do at that time. And, trusting that I heard God right to sow that $1,000 seed and having the faith to believe him for what he promised me was hard, but it was necessary for my miracle to come to pass. And so, yeah, you have to, believe in your seed, the seed that you are sowing, the ground that you're sowing in, and just have faith and obey God. And then next would be just to attach your faith to the prophetic words spoken over your life. It is important that I attached my faith to that corporate word that Apostle Matt released, and even the word that man of God, gave me after church, and even every word that God spoke to me about the house. I could have disregarded those prophetic words. However, I didn't. I attached my faith to them. And so the next lesson would be faith without works is dead. The works for me was going to look at the house It was believing what God was telling me. It was going to the first time home buyers class, even though I didn't know how this would happen, putting that $1,000 deposit down, and plus the other deposits needed in order to secure the house with the builder. I had to trust God, I had to trust that he would work everything out. And he did. And so my next two lessons are this: get you some friends. Okay. I know this is not proper English, but get you some friends who believe in God and will keep you accountable and remind you of the prophetic words spoken over your life. No matter how defeated I felt during that situation with the mortgage company, because even though, 11 days, that was long, they were long 11 days, okay? To not know where you're going to live is stressful. So, having a friend there to encourage me and over those days and, just giving me daily reminders of the words that God's spoken over my life. And, she was able to help me see the enemy's plan very clearly. See, when the lender messed up and told me I would need to come to closing with that extra money, I was disappointed. I was defeated. I was stressed out. I was anxious. But having my friend keep me in line, keep me in remembrance of, you've come too far for God to let you fall. It's not going to go down like that. The enemy wanted me to look like a fool. The enemy wanted me to be prideful and think that the mortgage company was going to do something, deceitful with the numbers. And, he wanted me to say, you know what, I'm walking away from this deal. And, when they sent that last purchase summary over, I had my mentor look over it, who she used to work in real estate. So I had her look over that paperwork. And when she gave me the okay, I went forward in peace. So it's very important to have people in your circle who can keep you, in remembrance of what God spoke to you. And my last lesson that I want to share is, it's okay to ask God for big things. It's okay to ask God for things that will blow your mind. How can you have faith for something you won't even ask for? I remember there were times after I put the deposit down, they were building the house, I would drive 45 minutes to the home site, because at the time my apartment was 45 minutes from where I live now. And I would pray the prayer of Jabez in the neighborhood, kind of at the home site. And the prayer of Jabez, is in 1 Chronicles 4. And, I would pray, oh God, that you would bless me indeed, and you will enlarge my border, and that your hand will be with me to keep me from harm, so that I will be free from pain. And then the scripture ends with, and God granted his request. And let me just add this. Every month that I've been in this house, I have received unexpected checks in the mail. The Bible talks about the blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow to it. My bills are paid, y'all. My mortgage for this house is very close to what I used to pay for an apartment. No one can tell me that God isn't real. No one can tell me that he does not perform these types of miracles for people. So thank you for tuning in and listening to my testimony about my miracle house. I will always call this house a miracle house because it was only God who could do it. I hope this video has blessed you. I hope this video has increased your faith to believe God for more and to be obedient to God when he speaks to you. So thank you for watching, and please share this video with whomever you think will be blessed from hearing my testimony. See you next time.